This is David. Can I ask a few questions just to see that I understand and maybe talk a little bit about my background, and you will understand where the questions are coming from. So I'm David Simchi-Levi. I'm on the faculty at MIT. I've been an academic for a long time. In parallel to being an academic, I started and sold a few companies. The first company was in supply chain analytics that the company became part of IBM in 2008. And then in the last 4 years, I sold 2 companies in business analytics to Accenture. And so I have both experience in supply chain and analytics from the research side and from the practical, from supply chain practice side. And here is my question. I have very little experience with blockchain. So this is trying to pinpoint where the benefit is in supply chain, and in particular, trying to understand what we can do with blockchain that we cannot do with other technology. And the way I'm thinking about this, to just pinpoint the question, I can think about 2 different types of supply chain. One where the participants are not necessarily trusted, are not known, it's very complex, and maybe blockchain can add trust and transparency. The other one is a supply chain where everybody in the supply chain is known, where the parties are trusted. My question is, does blockchain play a role in the second type, where everybody is known, they are trusted, and there are technologies that help them coordinate activities, make sure that they optimize decisions, make sure that transparency is provided, and so forth and so on. So I'm trying to understand exactly what and how blockchain is helping us improve supply chain performance. I understand that the technology is there, but what is exactly the potential impact?
I'll try to give the answer briefly. Let's consider this model. So let's consider this is especially in supply chain. There could be different kind of supply chain, and I have worked in a trade finance project where all the different participating members, all the participating organizations are from different parts of the world. So obviously they do not have a centralized authority to guide them or to regulate them. They are not belonging to the same country, so the rules do not allow them to work under a single legal complication. So here, what happens if you work with blockchain? So there is complete transparency, and especially there is an issue with money. Like let's say there is a buyer and a seller. So now, how the seller would know that the buyer has got enough amount in his wallet? Now, let's say the project starts and it ends after a year's time. So within year's time, even if at the beginning the buyer can showcase that, yes, I got enough amount in my wallet. But then at the end of the year, this amount he could spend it elsewhere. So how there would be a peace of mind at the seller's point, for the seller, that there is enough amount. So what we have done in that project, we had created, that was a double-decker blockchain. We had used R3 Coda and Ripple. So Ripple is, using Ripple, you can transfer money within 4 seconds, anywhere across the world. So what we had done, we have created an escrow account on Ripple. And in that escrow account, the buyer had saved a particular amount of XRP, which is the Ripple currency. And he won't touch that money because in the escrow account, you can say that this money cannot be spent for a particular amount of time. So the buyer is having his peace of mind that this money is there, safe in this wallet. And there is a automatic smart contract which would run that if the seller is, completing his work on time, that the money would be automatically released and partially. Like let's say he has started working, then 10% of the money he would get. So after, let's say 2 months, he's saying that I have, there is a quality expert who says that, yes, he has completed 50% of the work. So another 20%, let's say. Once he has sent the goods and then maybe another 20%. So similarly, you can create or write your smart contracts so that this monetary part can be automatically handled, and everyone in this blockchain network, all the different parties can have access to know that what exactly is happening. So that is actually a very different solution, which probably you cannot do with a centralized server.
And that's why I split my question into two types of supply chain. One is when the supply chain participants are not known, are not necessarily trusted. And I understand your example, because that's where blockchain can help build trust, can help add trust. What I'm asking is about the second type of supply chain. And the second type of supply chain is a supply chain where the parties are known, the parties trust each other. Why not use, and this is not a criticism, it's just trying to understand, why not a centralized solution?
Yeah, sure.
Why not existing technology?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like in a government setup, let's say I have worked in some government projects in India. So there are different offices that trust each other. So in that kind of situation, because all of them are under the same government, so they would not probably go for a blockchain solution. So similarly, in an area like, let's say there is an umbrella organization under which there are multiple different smaller organizations who are working together in this kind of setup. So probably you'd work with a centralized server. But if you are not trusting each other, then that is the area where you should think of introducing blockchain.
And David, let me take a stab at that as well, because so if you have a group of firms who do trust each other and who supply to each other, I mean, that's been going on for years and years, right? This is not new, but now you're talking more about process efficiencies. There is a large amount of work in invoice reconciliation, in dispute resolution, even in very trusted partners. And there's a price tag associated with that. So some of the largest firms that I have talked to have said, we actually plan on using blockchain, not because we don't trust our other suppliers, we do, but we recognize that in order to match up the invoices every month and to do all the things that we have to do to work together, it's at times grossly inefficient.
Right.
So from their perspective, they see it truly as a process play.
Right. And my question is, can you address it? Again, this is not a challenge. This is a student learning. I'm feeling here like learning from all of you. And why can't you do the same thing with existing technology?
That's a good question.
And the reason I'm asking this is because I've been enough time in supply chain to recognize there are lots of platform and offering that technology providers have out there that allow companies to focus on exactly the same question that you have identified. Take an example, logistics and transportation. There are multiple platforms there that allow different partners to collaborate, to participate, to accelerate process. And there are claims, and I'm not disputing all these claims, claim for improvements in efficiency, reducing time, which of course translate into better performance and so forth and so on. So it would be good to pinpoint where blockchain is doing things that other technologies that exist today cannot do.
So David, let me try to address this with you for just a second on your second point, and it was touched on a little bit last week in the presentation, where the parties that are engaging in a consortium or private blockchain in the trusted scenario that you're talking about, that there's the trusted piece, like Denise said, the devil's in the details. The exception management is what takes up most of the time, and the visibility to an uneditable record that everybody can see as the single source of truth is where the value comes in of those systems. But in the second scenario, it's the interoperability of systems to a standard. And the blockchain side paves the path. It tells the story of what is expected, and it looks for the unexpected. And if the expected arrives, then it just processes it without exception. But if there is something that takes place outside of what is expected, then the parties that need to be activated to solve the problem can address it while the information is fresh. And in siloed systems that are processing in batch processes for internal, then transferring an EDI to another system, you lose that interoperability of those systems.
But that does not imply, just to make a comment, it does not imply blockchain. That imply a platform that brings together, and there are decentralized, centralized systems that provide it. So I'm not trying to dispute the benefit. I'm trying to understand the benefit, because I can see exactly the same statement made by a centralized platform saying precisely what you just said.
So I think the challenge is the physical world to the digital world, right?
Yeah.
The connectivity of what's physically moving and the agency, as Linda's favorite word, of which people are involved in moving each one of the transactions forward. And in the old B2B world of EDI and just transferring event data of consummation of transaction and end of event, it doesn't take into account the exceptionality. It doesn't provide the visibility of intershipment changes that become, especially in the automotive world, where you have just-in-time inventory. I mean, you mentioned RFID tags and tagging those inventory. I've worked in that automotive space also, and in the manufacturing side, they may not have the visibility of the blockchain or the just-in-time serialization.
Michael,
of the
I'm
RFID
going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there. They don't have the visibility because they didn't ask for it.
That's what I'm saying. But the suppliers do, because the suppliers have a service level agreement.
Changing the topic. Would blockchain do that without any additional investment?
So
blockchain cannot play magic on it. They have to know a card has moved from point A to point B. It has to be captured, recorded, and transmitted somewhere. Now,
no question. But the somewhere is what we're talking about with blockchain as a hash, where it doesn't necessarily have to put all of the information on the blockchain, but instead references that information with a token of authority so that the proper credentialized people can see that transaction. I mean, you've referred to the blockchain getting slow because it's getting heavy because it has all of this information. It's actually not necessary for all of that.
It's not because it has all the information. It's because it has to do a new hash.
Okay, but creating a GUID happens instantaneously. I mean,
we can debate on that, but there is old system, not old, very sophisticated system. I mean, we can debate on that. How do I do my keys and attachability? Now about accessibility permission, that's a different issue. But I still am not convinced that if somebody doesn't go there and see there's a bunch of bananas being putting on a truck and record it physically, sensor, you don't put the system in your process, you will not get the data. It doesn't matter.
That's clear. But the interaction between the manufacturer that produces the water pumps for the Nissan plant is intending to provide the water pump that is going to fit on the vehicles that they're producing today. And in order for them to meet their service level requirements, they have to be able to make sure that those are the right pieces of inventory on the right truck that are going to that plant. And if they don't have that accountability, they won't have the account any further with Nissan. So they have those controls because Nissan, the car makers, have made it so that the manufacturers have to reach a level of service requirements, but they could also share that data of what they have as the out point of their system to the in point of the Chrysler or the Nissan plant and give them full visibility of what the serial numbers are of each of the water pumps that are coming in, so that they can associate that serial number with the manufactured VIN number and tie all those pieces together for warranty and for authentication.
For the sake of time, so are they doing it on only blockchain can do that?
Well, Chrysler is not going to get a chance to reach inside of the manufacturer of the water pumps system to see how much steel they bought. They're not going to be able to look inside of their one single database system and see how much their transportation cost was. They don't need to see that. What they do need to see is the purchase orders that are assigned to them that they get visibility to be able to see when they're shipped, when there's an exception, when they arrive, and what the inventory is that's inside of it. And that's really what blockchain is enabling, is the visibility to just the pieces that you need.
I want to start a debate on this now. Why can't I have a distributed database system where I write smart queries, and you guys calling it smart contract? We don't smart without intelligence. I didn't pull the AI card yet. That I could write queries that will find it.
You could. Which databases do you have as distributed at the moment? Is this the manufacturer's database and Chrysler's database, or is this the manufacturer's database and the trucking company's database?
Whoever, my point is, whoever I want to be linked, I can have them linked.
How? That's what I'm asking, is how are you going to do that? How are they going to permission your access to their database? That's what I'm trying to figure out from I mean, that seems to be
I'm far away from programming, but I know that it can be done. They can give me access to get it as I want it. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Maybe I need to learn a little more, but I do know that we can write queries that can access that. Let's assume I have the access, but maybe not. Okay.
But I think it's interesting for supply chains to be able, and again, that's the topic of our discussion here, is the supply chain and the value chain. That doesn't include just one vendor that's in the middle of it and them and what their perspective is. The purpose of blockchain is to be able to be better together, where all of the constituents that are involved in providing value to the end customer can collaborate with the pieces of information that are valuable to be able to assist in delivering that service without exception. And to do so where it doesn't require specific direct interfaces between my proprietary system and your proprietary system and every other one of my vendors' proprietary systems. I don't want to manage those many interfaces. Instead, I'd rather say, when you do this action on my behalf, share this piece of information with me like this, and it'll update my systems automatically. And EDI has been doing this internally for systems for a long time, and it was bastardized. It was bastardized from being what was started out as a standard and normalization of communications, and turned into the elements of transacting with custom defined fields at the end of it, that every company made their own unique set of exchange parameters, and it made it difficult to be able to have that interoperability without custom interfaces. And I think what we're seeing now, especially with the virus situation and supply chains getting the visibility that they have, is that service failures, lack of visibility, creates lack of confidence. And lack of confidence creates chaos when people say, well, you have inventory here and we need it here and we can't get it from here to there.
I agree with everything you're saying, that chaos and crisis. All we are discussing today, do I have to have blockchain to solve that problem? Anyway,
I think the have to is the word that I'm trying to be able to get around. It's a choice. It's a choice of the companies that are wanting to reduce friction between their transactions by agreeing to some standards and some way to be able to share information back and forth.